Well, hello there. Welcome back to the Obithorian Alliance. And in today's video, we are reviewing Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Don't forget to like and subscribe and stick around.
So, summarise it for me, Jacob. What happens in this movie?
Well, basically what happens is that this is the third Guardians of the Galaxy 3 movie directed by James Gunn, and his final directed movie. It came out in May, and it is featuring Rocket and Star-Lord, starring Chris Pratt playing Star-Lord, and then,
Yeah, so we've got the usual gang in it. So what happens? What starts this movie off and kind of gets it going?
Basically, Adam Warlock shows up, who was a new character set up in the previous film in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and then he is looking for Rocket for unknown reasons, and then in the fight that pursues, Rocket gets injured, and then the Guardians win that encounter with Adam Warlock, and then they have to find a way to get him better, and that is the plot goes on from there.
Yeah, so we've got kind of a rescue mission trying to save their friend, and in the process we get a series of flashbacks and get to understand a lot more about Rocket Raccoon, who is kind of an unknown, secretive character, I guess. People want to know more about him, but he himself doesn't really reveal too much about it in the previous films. So, moving into scores, let's get into it. So, what did you give the plot, Jacob?
I gave it a 9. I really enjoyed the humour, but it wasn't too like in your face, like in Thor: Love and Thunder. It was timing, and the writing was perfect by James Gunn. And this, as his final directed film, is really I think it's very much a back to form for Marvel. I don't know if it's because of James Gunn himself or just because of what the characters are. But really enjoyed the plot of the movie. I really enjoyed the flashbacks and telling the story. I think it really worked. And really enjoyed how the characters really enjoyed the message with the friendships, and yeah, the plot really works.
Yeah, I gave the plot 8.5. I think it was kind of what we needed, something that was, a combination of funny but had a good story to it. It's more than just this person wants to invade this planet, we need to stop them. It wasn't something major that was going to build onto a new supervillain that the Avengers are going to be involved. It was just kind of simple, to the point. We got to learn a lot about Rocket Raccoon in particular, and it had a lot of sad movie moments, a lot of happy moments, a lot of laughable moments. It ticked a lot of boxes, but I think it had depth to the plot, as I said. So I really liked this 8.5. What about the characters?
It was a 10. I really have liked the development from the 3 Guardians of the Galaxy movies and them in the Avengers movies as well, and finally closing the chapter in a way with them, and really have enjoyed their character development as a group, and the chemistry between them as a group. They don't get along, but they do get along. I think the characters are really top-notch, and to think that we would like the characters so much from the first movie, I think shows that you can't assume going in that just because you don't know something that something won't pan out.
So I gave the characters a 9. I think the Guardians have a really, really solid cast. I think that each character brings something unique. I was late to get on board with the Guardians of the Galaxy, but now that's probably my favourite team-ups by, easily, movie, and I just think the characters are very, very solid and offer something unique, each of them. So what about the acting?
Acting, 8.5. It is a superhero movie, but still I really enjoyed the acting. I would say it was probably the best, soul-provoking, great performances. Get to see a lot of heart and soul from Rocket and Star-Lord with Chris Pratt. They're probably the best performance. And David Bautista, they steal the show. But overall, it was really great acting overall.
I gave the acting 8.5. Just like Jacob said, it was very, very solid. But, you know, in terms of what they could or show their range in this film, I was never going to give it a 10. You know, they couldn't, you know, give their heart and soul into everything. It was the type of film it was. So I think an 8 or around 8.5 is a fair mark for what they could do. You know, it's not a Shakespearean play. It's a, you know, a comedy in essence, you know, and a rescue mission. So an 8 for me. Entertainment factor?
For me, it's a 10. The Guardians of the Galaxy are known to make people laugh, serious in moments, and I felt like this might be a big call, but for me, the third movie was definitely the best one, and I felt like it was solid in entertainment. It's overall the best movie, I feel like, and entertainment is grand throughout the movie.
I gave it an 8.5, a bit lower than Jacob. It was entertaining throughout. It just kind of pulled on your heartstrings a bit and pulled you in different directions, which just lowered the amount of entertainment. But as I said, it was what you expected. You knew what you were going to get. It's similar to the other films, which doesn't make it bad. It just goes, I wasn't surprised. It was just the amount of entertainment I expected from this type of movie. Presentation and visuals, Jacob?
A 9. I really enjoyed the presentation with when they were wearing their suits, how when everything was presented with the guards, how they were wearing their suits as well. A lot of colourful things. The Guardians have always been known for that, and I think it's really visually, out of all the MCU movies, it's definitely the best looking film in the franchise, and you always know you're going to get a stunning eye palette when it comes to the visuals.
Yeah, I gave it a 9 as well. The Guardians, they don't try and blow you away with special effects and slow motion camera tricks. It's just visually appealing because of the different types of creatures and species and planets they go to, and we got, you know, what we expect from the Guardians again. Pacing of the film?
A 9 as well. I really enjoyed the backwards and forwards between the plot that's happening now and then going back to Rocket storyline as well. For me, it worked. At first, I was like, it kind of wasn't working, and then I saw why it wasn't. I saw why they chose to do that, because I thought Rocket was the main character, and it's like, they've done what they did, but it worked with the flashbacks explaining his motives, and yeah.
I gave the pacing a 7.5. I don't know if that's just me now wanting to see shorter movies. I've mentioned it before in other reviews. I just sat there, felt like, I'm kind of waiting for this to come, and maybe it was the semi-false endings of, is the character about to die now? Was this about to happen? Are they about to die now? And then in the end, none of that actually coming to fruition of what I thought was going to happen made it feel like it dragged out. But that's just how I think maybe I'm just wanting shorter movies now. Ending?
I went with a 7.5. I was happy with what they did with certain characters, but one in particular I was not happy with, and I'll talk about it more in spoilers, but I was expecting something else going into the movie, and they kind of did the opposite, so they reversed my expectations, and I guess that's a good thing, but I'll talk more about ending in the spoilers discussion. But I was satisfied with it, but to me it was too perfect.
So I gave the ending an 8. I like that it hasn't fully closed the doors on the Guardians, but it's closed it enough that we go, okay, we're not going to see anything for a while, but they're still out there, something's still happening, and the fact that some of them are now going off on their own little missions and, you know, pursuing life. So I actually really like the ending. In terms of the defeating the villain, that kind of part of the ending, that was it wasn't anything overly special, but I just like how they've kind of wrapped up the final third film of the Guardians. Was it original, uniqueness? What do you give it?
I gave it a 7. Look, we've seen plenty of superhero movies now. I don't think it's unique as a superhero movie, but I think what they did with the storytelling made it different in a way. I can't think in Marvel that they have chose to tell stories in two perspectives with backwards and forwards in two different timelines. So that's what made it unique. But it is other superhero movies, so, seen plenty of those now.
I gave it an 8.5. I think a little bit differently about it than Jacob. But we've seen a lot of superhero movies, but this kind of gave us a different formula. It was instead of, oh no, this place is about to get destroyed, we need someone to come save us, to, oh, one of our own is in trouble, we need to go save them. It was heroes saving another hero, which I thought was a different twist. And then, a good backstory to Rocket Raccoon, whilst introducing new characters, and then in the end the villain is pretty full on, and the things that they're trying to do and their backstory, I think it was really unique. It wasn't at all what I expected. Prior to going to the movie, I actually had no idea what it would be about, and it was so far off what I thought it could have been based upon previous films. So I actually think it was really unique. Target audience?
I gave this a 9. I think if you're a Marvel fan and superhero fan, you're probably already going to watch this movie, but I think if you're not convinced by now, I think Guardians of the Galaxy, out of all the superhero movies, are probably the most appealing, and I think you can watch this movie without... Obviously, you need to watch the other Guardians of the Galaxy, but I think out of all the spin-offs from the series, you can watch just the Guardians of the Galaxy, and they're the most enjoyable. But if you haven't watched any other superhero movie, this won't convince you, but I think they nailed their target audience besides those people.
Yeah, I've gone 10 with target audience. I'm not going to say it appeals to all superhero film fans, but if you're a fan of the Guardians of the Galaxy, you won't be disappointed. There's a lot of sequels that come out to different films. You go, well, it wasn't as good as the original. I wish they would stop making that. I think the Guardians, that hasn't been the case. After each one, people have gone, we want more. And again, they've done that. Their target audience have came out of the film being happy, laughed, they've been sad, they've even cried. It's, and I haven't heard anything negative from people that are fans of the Guardians. Will it attract new fans? Probably not. But those that it was trying to attract, have, flocked to the theatre in droves, and came out saying positive things. And time value, was it worth watching?
Yes, I gave this a 9. For me, I was expecting something and didn't get that, but I really enjoyed this movie. I think it's going to be the best Marvel movie of the year, and it might be the best superhero movie of the year, and it was definitely worth my time.
Yeah, I gave it a 9 also. I think it was worth the time. I'm already a fan. I went and watched it. I wasn't disappointed. Could it have been much better? Probably not. Pretty much nailed most areas. But could I recommend it to other people that aren't already fans? Probably not. You're not going to know what's going on. But if you're already a fan, can you do yourself a favour and see it if you haven't already? So what was your grand total, Jack?
Out of 100%, it was 88%, and I think it deserves that. I don't think much Marvel movies will get around that 90 or 100% anymore. I think they have kind of saturated market now, but out of Guardians of Galaxy 3 is definitely the best movie from Phase 4 and 5, except for Spider-Man No Way Home, and I think it's definitely worth that score.
So my score's totaled in at 86%, just a little below Jacob's. I think it did exactly what it needed. It was the kind of Marvel movie we were needing after having a few other ones that were too intense or flopped a little bit. It's going to attract people back to the cinemas. I laughed, I cried, it ticked a lot of boxes. I think it was a really good movie. Just to push into that 90%, I spoke to Jake about this off camera. I just think new superhero films are really hard for me to push beyond 90% because they're the same thing over and over. That doesn't make them bad. They just are going to score poorly in some areas because it's just, I've seen that before. That's not new. That's not unique. It's the same. So I think it's as good as it can get for a superhero movie, and I think that's fine. I think that's a really high score for what it is.
Yeah.
So moving into some spoiler discussion. So if you haven't seen the film, maybe not watch the rest. So a question for you, Jacob. What do you think about the ending?
So I was expecting going into the movie, we've been told that one of the Guardians of Galaxies were going to die, or most of them, and none of them did. So I was shocked and surprised, and overall, and I guess, like you said, with the villain boss fight, it kind of happened. I guess it showed that they needed the team and not one person could do it, but it happened very easily.
Well, you mentioned you thought someone was going to die. Throughout watching it, which point did you think someone was going to die? Did you think, like all along, Rocket Raccoon was going to die? Or when you saw Star-Lord, caught in space, did you think he was going to die? Which one do you think was like, yeah, this is the one that they're going to die?
I actually thought they were going to kill Drax the Destroyer, because David Bautista, we know he's not doing Marvel anymore. He's moving on to DC.
That's an interesting perspective. I really thought Rocket Raccoon was going to die, but I thought it was going to be, nope, you've been saved. And when he came back from, going to the afterlife, they said, nope, this is not your purpose. You've got more. I thought then he would die saving the other animals, and that was going to be his purpose, that he saved those other animals, and then he would die, and he'd get to see his friends, but he did one last heroic act, but in the end, no one died.
Yeah.
So you can't be disappointed, though.
Did you like that, or...?
Yeah, I don't think people needed to die. It's, it adds an element and makes the film sad, but people don't have to die. There wasn't really anything to warrant it. There wasn't, some villain that was going to kill them. Their villain was actually fairly weak. He didn't really have that many powers. In the end, he had things he'd created which would eventually turn on him because they realised he wasn't, a good person. So moving on to that, what do you think about the villains? So it was the High Evolutionary. So I don't know if everyone picked up on the official name they gave him in the film, but what did you think about the High Evolutionary?
He's basically a mad scientist that wants to create a utopia, perfect society, and then he basically keeps trying to do that and then redoing whenever there's nothing perfect, and then Rocket was his perfect angel that his brain was able to do something, and then he has the perfect specimens, and then it's interesting how that worked out.
Yeah, it's a cool story to Rocket Raccoon that he was the only thing he could create that could also create. He'd made all these perfect specimens that could do memory tasks and follow instructions, but Rocket seemed to be the only one that could think and create and make new things. Like, he could almost do what the High Evolutionary was doing for himself. He could create a protege, essentially, which I think is interesting. What do you think that we actually confirmed, in fact, that Rocket Raccoon is a raccoon? When they showed his cage and you got to see it, because people always call him something different. He goes, no, I'm not that. Don't call me that. And he finally now, we know through his name and through the comic books, but it's confirmed.
Yeah, I guess that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a cool, funny ending they add there. So do you think... So we know the purpose of the villain. Do you think it was a good choice of villain?
I guess it was fine. I don't know what other choices they could have gone with. I guess it makes sense with the backstory with Rocket Raccoon, and I like the choice. I kind of like the mad scientist angle, and then how they revealed his face.
Well, it gave, kind of an epic villain and story, but nothing too big. Like, they didn't require the whole gang of the Avengers to come in to defeat him. Like, he wasn't terribly hard to defeat. He just wasn't on other people's radar. So I think it was the right villain for that movie. It wasn't underwhelming, because quite often we get villains you go, oh, that was crap. The whole movie was just to fight this one person. It was, it was probably a good mix. So what do you think about the idea? Would you like the direction and how James Gunn went about it? And do you think that he should do more films? Like, how do you feel about him possibly not doing any more Guardians?
I guess someone else will have to take over from if they do decide to make the Guardians of the Galaxy forward. I think they will, and I guess hopefully the next person will take over well, and I guess we shall see if someone can fill his spot, and I guess wish him well in his DC project.
Do you think he has made the film, or do you think the Guardians already were destined for success from the comic books?
I think a mixture of both, his direction and vision, and also the characters he was working with.
I think he's got a good mix, because we've seen others come in and try and really make the MCU funny. Like Taika Waititi comes to mind, and I think he actually kind of butchered the Thor franchise by going too far, but James Gunn has managed to keep the Guardians just not tipping over to being stupid. It's just on the right kind of mix.
Yeah.
What other things has he directed? The name sounds familiar. I know he has brothers in the industry.
The second Suicide Squad movie, the remake.
Yeah. Did he have anything to do with the Peacemaker?
Yes.
Yeah. You can tell he has that kind of flavour to it, and I guess there's a winning success. The things he's kind of touched have been, not everything's turned to gold, but he's nailed more than he's failed. So maybe he is the reason for the success then, because we've seen this isn't just a one-off thing for him.
Did you like the character ending that we got? I was upset with Gamora's ending.
Yeah, it's a tough one. They wanted to bring Gamora back into the franchise, but they didn't want to just be like, oh, well, she came back from the dead and her whole sacrifice to the Infinity Stone was pointless. So it's not a bad way to bring it in, but maybe they didn't need to. Like, if she's not going to be with Star-Lord, and are they trying to push that Star-Lord will end up with Nebula? I'm not sure. So maybe she's not needed? Like, what do you think?
I don't know. To me, it felt like they brought her back just to go back to a toxic situation anyway.
She's basically Star-Lord, you know what I mean? Like, she's taken his role within the Ravagers. Like, that's what she's going to do, and that she's, like, now found her family, which is, like, his family, so it's like they've just swapped roles. Well, I don't mind it.
And did you see that Star-Lord will be returning since he saw his uncle?
Yeah, so I'm glad that I'm. That's probably my favourite part about the ending, that Star-Lord he's going to Earth. He's finally going to experience Earth, and I think he's going to learn things that will make him funny. Like, they have that option now to give him that real, fish out of water kind of moment in future movies where he goes to Earth and, he might discover an iPhone and get to hear new music, and like that will expand this whole idea that they've got where he's obsessed with listening to music. And and his references to pop culture, and him really liking Kevin Bacon and all these things. He's going to get to go to Earth and experience these things that form his personality, and I think it's going to build a bigger and better personality for him.
Did you like that Rocket became the new captain of the Guardians?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's kind of been building towards that, and he has all the credentials to do it. And yeah, I don't know who else would have filled that. Like, as much as I like Drax, he's not really a leader. He's just a follower.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the review. As always, you're awesome, and keep being awesome. Like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Bye-bye.